Hello, Top Fan Rivalry followers, and welcome to another edition of College K. Dave and I have both been traveling, so we had to take a week off last week, but we're back at it. We're ready to talk about Omaha. Dave, how's it going?
It's going well.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just lead off. We missed the regionals and super regionals because of travel. Well, we touched briefly on super regional or on regionals, but was there anything that stood out to you in either the regionals or the super regionals that we wanted to talk about before we get to Omaha?
Well, I got a couple of them, couple from the super regionals. Obviously, there were some really good games, really good upsets, some really tough regions, and some relatively easy regions. West Virginia coming out of Tucson was kind of a big deal. That was a tough region. It was good to see Grand Canyon do well, being from Phoenix. But there was a kid on West Virginia this last weekend, Drew Clark, who 44 pitches against or Derek Clark, sorry, threw 144 pitches against North Carolina. Unfortunately, took the loss. But I was watching that game, and it was pretty amazing that they just kept throwing him out there and throwing him out there, and he kept him in the game till the end. So that was one. I wanted to shout that kid out, and then the Evansville center fielder Ty Rumsey. I don't know if anyone saw this play, but field ball during that
Yeah,
game, and came up with a nice cut on his face and probably rang his bell. And I think he missed the next game, but he was back playing in that third game. Um, Probably not 100%, but talk about toughness right there. And being able to rally your team around you. That
yeah.
was something to see.
Yeah, no, truth, truth. In the super regionals, I know you have some connection to Tennessee, but Evansville, the Cinderella story, almost took them to task, and it was interesting. You and I were texting about that. I was a little surprised in the regional aspect of it, in the same region. I was a little surprised to see Wake Forest get eliminated. I thought Wake Forest had a little bit better of a shot. It was surprising to see Evansville play it through, but I mean, thoughts on that, I guess.
Well, Evansville's got a veteran team, a lot of older players, so that was a big factor.
Hmm.
A classic case of who gets hot at the right time because they also had to go through ECU. And there's a player on Evansville, I believe, that went to ECU, and they use that as a little bit of a rallying cry too. So, and then Tennessee, they won the first game by 5. You could say that that one was close, but if you look at it, Tennessee scored 31 runs in 3 games. Was it really that close? Yeah, they lost one game. It was, in my opinion, pitching management in that middle game. Drew Beam is your dude. Yeah, he had a little bit of a tough day, but I guess I'm sticking with him a little longer. Then he got to go out there,
Yeah.
which would have shortened up the bullpen a little bit. Might not have changed the outcome. Maybe it would have, don't know. But they came back obviously on fire in that third game, hit 7 home runs in one game.
Yep.
So,
Yep. 100%. 100%. Dave, you and I both talked about this in pregame, but we need to discuss it now that we're recording and simply talk about the Clemson, Florida. I was the last game. I was incredibly impressed with how both teams handled themselves. Obviously, Florida advanced, Clemson lost in a walk-off. I think I want to say that was the 13th inning that happened. What a game! But you and I both need to discuss it from another perspective. So let's do that.
well, yeah. So what we're referring to is the controversial play where the ball's hit toward first base. It's fielded, kind of a hard tag. Call it what you want. I mean, it's not a contact sport, but come on, it wasn't like a dirty tag, but they took exception to it. It's right in front of the Clemson dugout. The guy running from second to third doesn't, this is all happening, and ends up putting his hand on an umpire and gets tossed. And the Clemson manager basically told the umpire, if you're tossing him out, you're going to have to tell him yourself, and called him out of the dugout to face the umpire himself, which I thought was a little bit over the top.
Mhm.
Call it what you want, but that was kind of the gist of it from what I saw.
Mhm. Yeah, and there was another kind of a weird play too, where um, there were some questions about a potential bat flip, and some arguments about how that'll play. Yeah, it was a weird. It was a weird. It was a weird umpiring day for sure.
Well, and then the two coaches got tossed right at the end,
Yep.
which caused the Clemson coach to not be able to talk at the post game press conference, which was silly. Um, and I mean, yeah, the kid Crichton touched the umpire. He was fired up. He obviously, the player shouldn't have left the bench. That can't happen. But to toss the kid in a super regional for something that ticky tacky, I got to think is not called for. I think the umpires should have had a little thicker skin on that one and
Right.
let that kid play in the game.
So my argument to this whole thing too is how do you get mentally? So you and I were both athletes. You and I both played. We got geared up. We were excited. Back when we played, it wasn't everybody plays 3 innings and everybody gets an at bat. If somebody mouthed off at you at the plate and they got to first base, I'm going to throw over there. I'm going to make it close. My first baseman's going to apply the tag a little harder than he would normally apply. But that's the game inside the game. That's when you used to be able to run over Carlton Fisk or Mike Sosha or somebody. Um, Little different today. Like we can't touch each other. I mean, so I don't think touching the umpire was a thing that was over the top. It wasn't like, he bumped him like some of the things that we've seen in the MLB on purpose, where it was malicious. But as an umpire, how do you come out and decide that you're having such a bad day that you're going to make a decision to insert yourself in the freaking game? Nobody's there to
Yeah.
see you. Nobody is there to see you. They're
Well,
all
and I
there.
don't
Go ahead.
I don't think
Sorry.
that game was getting to the point where the umpires needed to make a statement to keep the teams in line
No, not at all.
and maybe toss somebody to get everybody back to behaving and not out of control. And that game was never headed to that. There's too much on the line,
Yep.
and
Yep.
two really good coaches would never let it get to that. However, when the competitive juices get flowing and you want to take my guy out of the game, like Bakich did, said, well, you're going to have to tell him yourself.
Mhm.
And things got a little heated then too.
Right. And the part that is tough is if you toss a guy like Bakich for Florida, right? When you toss this guy, you got to remember that NC2A rules, if I'm not mistaken, NC2A rules are you have to sit out the next 2 games. So now you're in Omaha,
Well, that's why Bakich couldn't be at the post game press conference,
right?
which is some NCAA rule. So what good does it do to have the manager not be able to speak after the game? I
Mhm.
don't I don't get that.
Yeah, no, and in all honesty, I mean, why is anybody when you have this on the line, right? And you're playing best out of threes in Omaha, why in the world do you care about getting tossed out? But again, give them a fine. Give them something. MLB gives these guys a fine. Give them a fine. Let them move on. Now, obviously, he's not making the kind of cash that an MLB manager is making, but give him a
He's doing
fine.
okay. He's
Yeah,
doing okay.
yeah,
But
but not every
there's
man.
definitely a way around it. There's definitely a way around it. I just don't think it was handled right.
Uh,
Um, they're especially when a kid doesn't get to play the rest of the. You want to take it on the old men, the coaches, fine, but you got to let the kid play unless he does something egregious. Let him play. That this whole nonsense about bat flips has got to stop. I mean, it's the kid's game. It's
yeah,
their game.
yeah,
It's not the people like you and me that set the rules. They set the rules. If they want a bat flip, you know what? Have some fun, show some personality, and bat flip a little bit. You're not showing anybody up. It's the same as putting the sword away when you get a guy, you know what, have a little fun. That's fine. I'm using that to fire myself and my team up rather than directing it at you and want to fight you. That's stupid.
Correct. Correct. And it goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. So, like you said about putting the sword away. Okay. If a batter can celebrate, so can a pitcher. You're using that to fire your own team up. You're not saying, "Oh, look what I did. Look what," because we're all competitive in nature, right? As a pitcher, my job is to get you out. I know I've got two, maybe three shots at you per game. My job is not, oh man, you got a base hit off me. I need to dome you. I need to throw out your dome. My job is, hey, you got a base hit? All right, you beat me this time. Now let's go at it a second time. When you come back up, maybe I'm gonna
Hmm?
my tune up my change up or whatever. So it just and you and I have been saying this all year, both online and offline. Um, these are kids. These are some of them are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Some of them are early mid 20s, but most of them are young. And though they're technically adults, they're not, I mean, some of them aren't used to being playing on this stage, and it's a different scenario, right? Even if you're a sophomore, what are you, 18, 19, maybe 20 as a sophomore? Probably 19 though. Now you're suiting up, now you're on TV. Emotions are going to flow a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Let them play.
Yep, exactly. Now, if they start, bat instead of bat flipping, they throw the bat like,
There was one other play.
go ahead.
Yeah, if it's egregious, yeah, of course.
Yep.
But again, you know what? If I'm batting and you sword me,
Hmm.
I don't want to fight you.
No.
I want to take you over the freaking batter's eye the next at bat. That's how I'm
Hmm.
going to channel it.
Hmm. Right.
Same thing. Like if I take you over the batter's eye next at bat, you're going to try to make me look stupid in three
Hmm.
pitches. There was one other play I wanted to mention.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you saw it, but Kentucky beat Oregon State 3-2 in the late game Sunday. Did you see this play? Did you
I
see how
didn't.
Kentucky scored the third run?
No, I didn't. I heard briefly about it, but let's talk about it.
Well, it's a bit embarrassing for Oregon State and for the pitcher. Um, there was a wild pitch. I think he got a swing. It was a really good went as a wild pitch, went to the backstop, runner on second, runner on second scores because the
Because they didn't
pitcher didn't
cover.
cover.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there yelling at the TV like it's
Cover the
Little
plate.
League. I mean, come on, dude, cover. And then I pointed out to my son, I'm like, you got to watch this play. You know, unfortunately for the pitcher, it makes him look really bad. But dude, not only did you not cover, but it's the winning run of the game. Oh, man, that will make a coach absolutely insane.
Well,
All the time you spend on PFPs.
uh-huh. Yep. Every single time. And honestly, I mean, you remember this 1988. Uh, Dodgers are down. Dodgers are trying to fight for their lives for a playoff spot. And before Kirk Gibson got hurt, ball went to the backstop. He rounded second. He just kept trucking. And again, same thing. They didn't think he was going to go from second to home. But by the time the pitcher realized what was happening and he could get to the plate, he has to get to the plate, think to catch the ball, think to apply a good tag. And Kirk Gibson already had him beat.
Well, yeah, and the same thing happened here. I'm sure the pitcher had no inclination that that kid was going to run from second base all the way home. So I get that. He's got his back to him. I get that. But scouting report on Kentucky, they run, and
Mhm.
then they run, and then they run, and then they run some more.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So I, we've all seen it. We've all seen it where the pitcher throws a wild pitch, nobody on base, and they're running to cover just because it's part of their habit. that's what should be happening.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
feel bad for the kid. Obviously, he learned a lesson he'll never forget.
mhm.
But it was very, very costly, and probably a clip that will be used on video this fall for all the new pitchers not to do.
Well, it's there's 100 different things, and you never want to be used as a video clip, right? But this is what we talk about. What you and I have talked about. We talked about this several weeks ago. You cannot. There was a certain point before you were selected to the tourney where you can have physical mistakes because those just happen, but you can't have mental mistakes. And there's nothing about this except for it was a mental mistake. That you can't slice this tomato any other way. It's
Yeah,
a mental,
time.
right? So, yep. Well,
So let's
uh,
look forward.
yeah, exactly. Let's talk. Let's talk. See what's going on here. So we've got 8 teams left. We got Virginia facing University of North Carolina. We've got Florida State facing Tennessee. We've got uh, North Carolina State facing Kentucky. We've got Florida versus Texas A&M. Why don't you break down each bracket on what you see, and I'll jump in as your number two guy. But what do you see in that bracket number one there?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know a lot about Virginia. I do know that most folks didn't have 4 teams from the ACC going to Omaha,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a big deal.
Yep.
These 2 teams have to know each other very well, so I think it's probably anybody's game. I would lean toward North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I just like, and the other one, obviously, I know Tennessee very well. I don't know a ton about Florida State other than early in the season we were talking about them in some ungodly winning streak that they had going.
Yep.
So they again, at the time when we were talking about that, I guess we probably didn't realize how good the ACC was.
Mm-mm.
Now, in hindsight, obviously they were very good if 4 teams made Omaha. Um, so both of them are battle tested.
Yeah.
Heard the stories, but I mean, they won the SEC tournament, they won the SEC regular season. They only lost 1 series to Alabama early. Um, the offense is ridiculously deep. There's guys on that bench that could play for any of the other 7 teams. Um, so if Florida State doesn't pitch, it's going to be over early. Um,
Yep.
and Tennessee will probably come back with their normal AJ Causey, the side armor, and it's probably something that Florida State hasn't really seen a whole lot of. So I'm a big AJ Causey fan.
So if I were gonna bet on this, I would look at North Carolina advancing over Virginia, and believe it or not, I look at Florida State upsetting Tennessee. Not and again, this is no hate towards Tennessee. Tennessee's a very good ball club. You just mentioned it. If Florida State doesn't pitch, Tennessee's going to kill them in the first 2 games, and it's going to be a very short-lived series. But Florida State had to beat Alabama. In that division, you had Alabama, uh, UCF, and you had Stetton. But also in the other division where UConn came out of was Oklahoma, Duke, and Oral Roberts. And so there's some good ball clubs there that were beat. So it wouldn't surprise me now, like you say, comes down to pitching. That's all it comes down to is who pitches better, right? And we're not going to see this until Thursday, but it's going to be who pitches better.
Yeah, and let's just recap too. The winners of those two games are going to meet. So if your prediction comes true, it would be North Carolina, Florida State, and then the losers would meet. And again, following that prediction, that would be Tennessee and Virginia. So flip that and just say it's going to be North Carolina, Tennessee, in the winners bracket, and it'll be Virginia, Florida State in the losers bracket, and then the loser of that losers game will be eliminated. So
Mm, yeah. So Tennessee could work its way back, but yeah, I just I I don't know. I Tennessee's hot. They came into the tournament as the number one seed in baseball. Um, Probably expected to win it all, but that's extra. I mean, you and I have been watching baseball for a combined total of over 100 years combined between both of us. And very few times does the number one team win it all, whether it's
very
college
true.
or professional baseball.
Well,
So,
if you look at Tennessee and
mhm.
you look for a weakness, it's hard to find one, but it's going to be pitching, and it's probably going to be the bullpen. Is probably what you're going to point to. That's Evansville. That's probably if they're gonna falter, they're gonna struggle there. I haven't seen more than a couple of games all season where they didn't hit, and they can out hit bad pitching or mediocre pitching any day of the
well,
week. So
well,
if their bullpen and their pitching doesn't hold up the deal, then it's going to be a tough day.
so here's the thing though. Tennessee, part of where Tennessee could falter is them beating themselves, right? In baseball, there's wins and then you beating yourself. And you are a Chicago White Sox fan. There are a number of games, even though you're not having a great season, there are a number of games where you won the game, but then beat yourself and you ended up on the losing side of the equation, right? And
Yeah, and
so,
I think if you wanted to talk about beating yourself for Tennessee, what that would look like, it would look like an error, maybe two, and then pitchers hitting batters or giving up too many walks, which kind of plays into what I was saying a little bit about the
mhm,
pitching. If you put up zeros, you're going to have a tough day. And,
yep,
you know, if you were looking for a weakness, that's where it is. It's definitely not 1 through 9. It's probably not 1 through 12 in the hitters. That's not a
mhm,
weakness.
no, no. So if I were the manager of Florida State, I would tell the boys, I would say, listen, you are playing arguably the best team in the tournament. Okay. They don't have a weak spot. We need to get to their pitching early. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to be patient at the plate, take some pitches, almost assume like it's a beer league softball thing starting 0 and 1. And maybe see if you can't in the first 2 innings get the pitch count up to about 50 with their starting pitching and get into the bullpen early. Take some pitches, foul off some pitches. Don't expand the zone. Make them come to you. Now, that could backfire if their starter in the first game is lights out and all he's thrown is strikes. That backfires. But if it takes him 15 pitches in the first inning instead of 3 or 5 because you're aggressive, I would say get into that bullpen early because again, you got a best out three scenario. Get in that bullpen early. Okay.
Go with an
Um,
opener for the first. They're going to go with an opener for 2 innings or less, and then they'll go with Causey for another 4, 5, 6,
mhm,
which gets them to the eighth. And then you've got Snead or somebody like that to close it. So
mhm.
I do agree with what you said. Run up the pitch counts, see if you can get them deeper into the bullpen. Causey is a tough one to handle for anybody. So,
Yeah. Well,
well, what do you got on
again,
bracket two?
what do I got in bracket two? This is to me this is relatively unique. I think UK is going to take care of NC State. UK UK is looking pretty good. Like you and I would both agree with that. UK is looking pretty good. The other one is to me is a toss up. It really is a toss up. Because I'm sorry, A&M and Florida are both very good teams, and Florida is riding high off that win against Clemson. So, and A&M for the most part, A&M didn't look 100% challenged against Oregon. Maybe I'm misreading that, but what do you think?
Well, and A&M just lost a key player, Montgomery,
Hmm.
broke his ankle, so that's going to hurt them.
Hmm.
And they're both SEC teams, so there's no secrets.
Yep.
Um, I think you're going to see a lot of Jack Caglione for Florida
Hmm.
because he wasn't lights out pitching last time I saw him. So, and again, there's no secrets. There's going to be miles of film that A&M can watch on how he's going to attack them. So, I think you're right. It's probably a toss up. You know, a week or two ago, we would have said Florida gets murdered in this game, but I don't think so right now.
No, no.
On the other one, you know, Kentucky is pitching a lot better than anybody expected, I
Huh?
think. And I think pitching carries the day. NC State beat a really good Georgia team. They're going to be feeling really good about that. Obviously, feeling good about just being in Omaha, but that NC State team is nothing to overlook. And I think Kentucky will have their hands full if same deal, right? NC State says, let's get into their bullpen. Let's uh, let's run these pitch counts up. Let's foul a bunch of balls off. Let's just try to really work these guys and try to get into the bullpen and get the starter out of the game and see where we're at. I think that's the same game plan for them.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, uh, yeah, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see Kentucky in the finals. I That wouldn't surprise me at all. Unless, so if you're NC State, if you're Florida State, you're facing what I'm gonna quantify as powerhouses. You've got to play the old school fundamental baseball. You got to run when you can. You got to make them, you got to dance off the bases. You got to make them, feel a little nervous. You got to take pitches. You can expand the zone. And you've got to really, really, really focus in on the things that you learned when you're were 6 and 7 and 8 years old, where the cutoff man is, those things. Just do the very, very basic things. And so I saw a play recently at the MLB level where you had a batted ball to the third baseman and you had a runner on second and a runner on third. Well, the third baseman catches the ball. The the person to retreats back to third base, right? And so he's standing on third base. Well, the guy from second ran, and so the first thing the third baseman did was he tagged out the runner from second because it's not his base. Well, the guy on third didn't understand what happened, so he put his foot off the base and he tagged him too. So he had a double play, right? It's just kind of quirky things like that that will change what Omaha looks like.
Yep. Well, it's double elimination until the end, and I think you know in bracket two to go along with a prediction. I think I see Kentucky playing Texas A&M, and I think I see NC State and Florida. And the losers bracket, I think NC State takes that,
Mhm.
knocks Florida out, and I think Kentucky takes out A&M in that second game. So I think a Kentucky A&M game would be must see TV. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, I
Florida
agree, and
State game
it's
is going to be must see TV.
yeah. Well, I agree, and I've already marked down my calendar for when these games are on Thursday and Friday to start the. I mean, it's exciting. I have to tell you, Dave, I'm going to confess. I'm going to confess what you will probably classify as a major, almost unpardonable sin, but you have made me a college baseball fan more than I was before, and you've got me excited. And I'm sitting in Vegas, and we're getting ready to drive home, and we're at breakfast, and the Wake Forest game is on, and I'm paying more attention to Chase Burns than I am Amber as we're eating because it's just so exciting, and she's trying to get me to understand, or help me help her understand what was going on. And I said, well, this guy's going to play Major League Baseball and yada yada yada. So I thank you for that. It's been a
Yeah,
great season for that.
yeah. Well, uh, I just made the recommendation. You know, these kids are the ones doing the playing and making it interesting and fun to watch. watch. So there, how can you not enjoy watching Hagen Smith, Charlie Condon, Christian Moore, Blake Burke, Jack Caglione? I could go on and on. So lots of
100%.
good players. There's a lot of good players that have already been eliminated, and the Tennessee coach went on a bit of a rant the other night about a bunch of things, and he brought up the center fielder from Evansville that ran into the wall and how he has nothing to be ashamed of, and how that is success. Every one of these players that played a tournament game is a success. Every one of these players that made it on a D1 roster is a success.
Mhm,
So it's just been a fun season. They're the ones doing the balling, and we get to watch.
mhm. 100%. 100%. So let's do it again next week. We'll have some more to talk about. Um, and then we'll work in some other fun stuff. But Dave, I sure do appreciate you and all the effort that you do for Top Fan and for those that listen to this. I absolutely love this, and I'm going to work on getting a couple of guests on that you may enjoy. So we'll definitely talk very, very soon. So have a great week, all.
I
Dave,
think
go ahead.
last thought, the schedule here has Omaha starting on Thursday, June 30th. So we'll be done shortly after that. We'll have to talk before the finals. And then maybe once that's done, maybe we do something about, the coaching carousel, the transfer portal, that kind
Uh-huh. Yeah.
of fun stuff. It never ends.
And the draft too. We need to do something fun with the draft,
Yes.
right? And so, but 100%, Dave, I just love it. Let's just keep doing it, and let's do it again next week.
Sounds good.